So don't forget to comment throughout the show. The show's about to get started, so grab yourself 2 hearty buckets of popcorn and get ready to have a discussion about how to use your creative talents to sell. Now it's time for a message from today's sponsor.
If you could go back in time and fix one mistake you made at the start of your business, what would it be?
If I had to do it all again, knowing what I know now, I would start with much more money.
The gurus don't want you to know this, but you can use money to buy things like marketing, basic living essentials, and LinkedIn Premium. Let's talk about that first one.
When I first started my business, marketing was so hard, mostly because I don't have any skills. Fortunately, I did have money, so I was able to hire an agency called Flying Cat to do SEO and organic content for me. And now my marketing is much better.
So the next time you feel imposter syndrome, just give your money to somebody more talented than you and take the credit when their idea works. After all, you were the one who hired them. If you think money can be exchanged for useful services, go ahead and drop a comment. And don't forget to click the follow button so I can protect you from the gurus.
Live from Chicago, it's Chris Sells His Soul. I'm your host, Chris Bogue, and this is my show where I have conversations with cool people who will help you work more creatively. Today, my guest is Scott Leese. Scott, welcome to the show.
What's up, Chris? I have a strong sensation that I am in the SaaS version of Between Two Ferns.
I wish I could make you really uncomfortable, but I'm actually just like, I'm like just really touched that you're here. You've been one of my biggest inspirations on LinkedIn for a while. So before we do anything, Scott, would you mind just letting my audience know where they can find you online?
Yeah, you can obviously find me on LinkedIn. I reply to anybody who sends me an actual real message. You can also check out my consulting business. My website there is scottleaseconsulting.com. You can also check out surfandsales.com if you're looking for an alternative to sales conference hell. You have a little conference down in Costa Rica this November. You can check it out, surfandsales.com.
Excellent. And if you are unfamiliar with me, my name is Chris Bogue. So I am the host of this show. I am a sales coach. Particularly, I teach video prospecting for sales. I'm also a sketch comedian, and I also teach video content creation. So if you want to follow me, you can find me on LinkedIn at Chris Bogue. You can go to chrisbogue.io. Also, ring the bell. There's a bell on LinkedIn. You click it, you'll get updates from me. I do comedy. And sales and all sorts of content about how to get better on camera and how to use your creative skills to make money and monetize yourself. So, Scott, we are going to kick things off here in just a moment. But first, I want to give a shout out to today's sponsors. Thank you very much to Apollo.io and Flying Cat. Without you, none of this would be possible. Stay tuned, everybody. You are going to be seeing some amazing content from them later on in the show. And also, we want to hear from you. So if you are watching this live today on YouTube or LinkedIn or X, Denise, thank you very much. I see we have you in the audience today. If you are watching this live, go ahead and jump into the comments. Scott and I do not know that you are here unless you comment. All right, so ask us about anything. You can ask us about sales. You can ask us about coaching. You can ask us about surfing. I don't know anything about surfing, but fortunately, Scott knows a lot about it. So we're going to be here today talking to Scott, and we'll just kind of dig right into it. So today's show is called Fail Faster. And I chose this topic because I read your book in preparation for this show today, Scott. You've been doing sales for a long time. You've exited a lot of different companies. You've been an advisor for all sorts of huge companies and unicorns and all these wonderful things. And I read your book, and the thing that I kept noticing was how much it is talking about stuff that is not winning. I think it's very common for salespeople and sales trainers to advertise the big wins. But really most of sales is not that. So can you give us just like your backstory, and how did you get to be a person who can fail regularly as part of your job all the time?
Well, the backstory, I guess, is I got into sales relatively late. I was 27 years old. I had prior 4 years been in the hospital and was dealing with severe sickness and illnesses, had 9 major surgeries, 2 emergency life-saving surgeries, kicked opioid addiction, and was 27 years old when I was healthy and had to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life. And sales was suggested to me, something that I might like and be good at. So I end up in sales, and I realized really quickly, like, I am not good at this. And this is 20 something years ago. It wasn't coming naturally to me. There was no podcast, there was no LinkedIn, and there wasn't the resources to learn that there is today. And so the only thing that I could think of was I just have to like outwork everybody. Basically, I need as many repetitions as possible. I've got to get through all the parts of me sucking so I can get to a part where I'm any good. Right. And so it was hard. I don't want to make it seem like it's not hard to deal with that level of failure. But what always works for me is I think about the hardest thing that I've ever been through. And for me, the hardest thing that I've ever been through is that 4 years of health scare and losing everything basically. And then I kind of measure that up against, is cold calling hard? Is prospecting hard? Is finding a job hard? Is getting fired hard? Is being scared to miss my quota hard? No, none of that stuff is actually hard by comparison to what I've already been through. And I would venture to say that anybody here has been through something incredibly difficult, incredibly painful, that if you told it to the rest of us, we would all be like, I have no idea how you got through that. And so what I tell people is you need to lean on that. When you're worried about all these other things, it's because you don't have the perspective yet of what actually matters and what's actually important. And once you get that perspective, what happens is you become free. You're free to fail. You have nothing to lose whatsoever. And so you can take risks, and you have this inherent confidence that no matter what happens, I'm going to be okay, because this is nothing compared to what I've already dealt with. And that became kind of, and has remained, my sort of overarching principle or motto as I move through life, and in particular to my career, and in a profession where 99 point whatever percent of the time we fail. And I don't know how people can be successful in sales in particular without this acceptance of failure and the willingness to keep going even beyond that point.
Yeah, I almost think it has to happen from outside of like I don't know. I don't know enough people who've like screwed up a sale that bad. I guess how could you really screw up that bad? But like I know for me, I kind of had this eureka moment too in my life where I always played things very safe. I was always a very approval seeking person, not a big risk taker. And it wasn't until my marriage completely fell apart, and it was like the worst thing that I thought could happen to me. And so you're like, oh God, you've thought about it in the past. You've heard other people go through stuff like this, and you're like, that would be unimaginable. I don't know how to get through that. It happens to you, and you wake up in the morning and you look at the mirror and you're like, oh, I'm still here. You know, like I'm still alive. I still have choices to make. I still have things to do. And yeah, for me, it's like the nerve to go out and do sales, and you need some nerve. You're annoying. I tell people, like, don't think you're going to do sales and never annoy someone. You are good. Even when they want to hear from you, it's kind of annoying, you know? But I'm like, how could anyone rejecting me be worse than the rejection I just faced? You know, it couldn't be. And actually it's just a numbers thing where it's like, oh, actually, if you just keep asking people, eventually someone's gonna give you a yes, and it's not a failure anymore. So I don't know. For me, it was this thing, and it's happened to a lot of people I know who get divorced, where it's like, if it's never happened to you before, it sounds terrible. And then if it has happened to you, people are like, congratulations, you know? And I didn't get it till it happened to me. And yeah, now it's like, now I run my own business. So you fail way even more, you know? But yeah, I almost think it has to be, you need something else to compare it to. And I mean, opioid addiction, that's, again, I was just about to utter the words. I couldn't even imagine that, but it's
because
a common thing.
the things that we've gone through, we can relate to. The things that other people have gone through seem unimaginable to us, you know. But you get through it, hopefully, right? And if you're still here, you've gotten through it, and it's very liberating once you can accept that. And you need to find a mechanism to remember it and fall back on it whenever things that seem important to us, like, oh my God, I didn't close that deal, or my pipeline is not where it needs to be, or I'm on a PIP, I might get fired. It's like, you think I fucking care if you fire me? Do you know what hell that I've been through? I don't care. You fire me, whatever, I'll find another job. So what?
Yeah.
And that's liberating. That's empowering. And then, you're now in control, and you don't worry about failing as much. You just accept it as part of it. You and I could create some new business right now today. We could spin something up out of thin air, right? We have a good idea. I'd be like, fuck it, let's try it. Let's see what happens. What's the worst thing that can happen? We spend a little bit of time. We spend a little bit of money. We embarrass ourselves because we fail. Oh, well, the people that I actually care about are not going to, cast me aside just because I tried something that didn't work. And anybody who does is not worth being in my life anyways. Whatever. No big deal. Let's give it a shot.
Yeah, my brother, my older brother, when I got divorced, he had some of the most sage words for me. He goes, "Chris, I mean this in the most kind and caring way I possibly can. Nobody gives a shit. Nobody gives a shit. They're all dealing with their you think it's the most crushing, humiliating thing that's ever happened to you? Nobody even cares. I feel, and he shared similar things where it's like, where it feels like to you, your whole life is falling apart. But our brains are not designed to absorb the failures of everybody else on earth. We're all concerned with our own personal story. So yeah, if something fails, people just kind of don't notice it. They don't notice our failures as much as we do. I want to get to a quote. So as I mentioned, if anybody is interested in reading Scott's book, Scott wrote a book called Addicted to the Process that I read on Kindle recently. And I picked out some quotes of yours that I like. So I want to start with this one. So you said in there that sales is the garbage can of jobs.
Yeah. I think that's actually the first line of the book.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a pretty descriptive line. We can all infer what you mean here, but I want to hear from you a little bit. Because it's not a glamorous, like, having money is glamorous, but the actual activities that come with doing sales are not glamorous. So take me through what you mean when you say sales is the garbage can of jobs.
Yeah, I mean, simply put, we are the bin where everybody casts aside their trash. That's it. It's like we are doing the job that nobody else wants to do. Right? We weren't smart enough to become lawyers or doctors, or we didn't try hard enough to do that kind of thing. We weren't studious enough or whatever. We didn't get a 1600 on our SAT. We have liberal arts degrees, if we have any degree, right? So, but what we are good at is communicating, engaging, building relationships, all these kinds of things. And we have ambition. We just have never been able to figure out how to apply it very well. So we're the trash that other people said aren't good enough. You're never going to make it. Never, right? Think about even now today, when it's 2024, you've been in sales maybe for 20, 30 years. I tell my parents I'm in sales and they're still like, ugh. They still have that reaction. Go tell total strangers that you're in sales and it's like, oh God. Right? It's like, okay, when are you going to get a respectable job, Scott? It's like, what? How is this real still? So rather than like rage against that, I just kind of embrace it. It's like, yeah, some of us are degenerates. Some of us were degenerates.
Some of us are degenerate. Yeah.
Some of us were degenerates. Some of us are functioning degenerates right now. Like, I get it, you know, but we actually can kind of take ownership of that and turn it into a source of pride. And it's like, I didn't come from money. I didn't go to Stanford. I'm not a trust fund kid. I didn't ace my SAT. I didn't go to 12 years of medical school. I get it. Like, you thought I was going to become nothing, but guess what? We can actually make something special out of our lives anyways.
Yeah, and let's be honest about lawyers. How different is a lawyer than a salesman? I grew up looking at all these professions that I thought were so fancy. Part of the reason why I went my own way too was I was in academia for a while. I was doing university sales to universities, class discussion software. And yeah, after working with PhDs at elite schools, Ivy League schools, I'm like, these people are not, they do not have their shit together the way, society makes us think they do. And like, you think the law is all about this arcane language that you have to be a master to understand. It's playing to an audience, it's building a case. It's not that different than the things we do in sales. And I think that the thing that people don't get about sales, unless you haven't done it, is that most of the time those big contracts that come through, they're not doing it for my reasons, and they're not doing it for Scott's reasons. They have their own reason, and you just need to be the person who like gets the ball rolling, but it's a lot of listening. I always go back under the show. There are these different professions where you have to be a good listener. Therapists. I'd throw lawyers in there, musicians, like jazz musicians, hostage negotiators. Like, there are certain types of people where you need to be able to listen to others. And I think that's the most important part of sales, is being able to listen and quickly tell, is this a person who's even relevant to me? Or is this a person who I might be able to actually help? And, most of that trust building and stuff is like, how comfortable do they feel with you? And that comes often down to, can we listen to them and can we make them feel understood? So I want to talk to you next here about, so that book surprised me, Addicted to the Process, because it was a lot about transactional selling. And that's not what I think about you, Scott. I see you as a guy who everybody knows, everybody on LinkedIn. If you do sales at a high level, everybody knows Scott Leese. I liked it. Maybe I just don't know enough people, but I don't know anybody who thinks bad things about you. There are lots of people who get a bad reputation on LinkedIn. Everybody I know says you're like pretty legit. They're just like, yeah, it's Scott Leese. That guy knows what he's talking about. I see the kinds of deals you put over the line. I know that stuff doesn't take place instantly. That takes place over a long time. So why write a book about transactional selling? And is that really where your heart is at, or have you changed over time away from transactional selling?
It's a great question. If I could do it all over, I would change the sort of subheading title of the book and remove the transactional selling part. Because what I have found is that what I talk about in that book and my methods are applicable to all types of sales, whether it's transactional, mid-market, enterprise. But at the time, I had spent the first, I would say 60-70% of my career in more transactional kind of selling environments, not selling enterprise software, not selling mid-market software, all SMB, small businesses, lower kind of contracts, faster sales cycles. And at the time, what I was thinking was, I'm pretty tired of everybody disrespecting this arena. Mm-hmm. You can take a transactional seller who's used to heavy volume, fast sales cycles, okay? And I can teach them how to become an enterprise sales person, and they'll be quite good at it. I cannot take somebody who's been in enterprise sales and put them back in a transactional sales environment. They can't succeed. They won't do it. They won't put forth the same amount of effort. They can't move things fast enough. It doesn't work. And so I always felt like transactional sales is very disrespected. And there was no kind of book or literature out there supporting this specific type of motion. And candidly, most people got their start in sales in transactional, lower ACV kind of environments. And so I thought, well, this is what my experience is so far. I think this is disrespected and it's just as valuable as larger enterprise deals. I'm going to write a book about this specific thing. But for the last 10 years or so now, I have not really been involved in transactional sales whatsoever. I went on to build a mid-market, low enterprise software organization that turned into a unicorn. I have been advising companies, in enterprise, Fortune 100, all the way down to, SMB, mid-market type stuff. So what I've found now is that the methodologies that I talked about are applicable to all these other areas, but I didn't know it back then because I had never actually done it. And so unbeknownst to me, I think I maybe sort of limited myself a little bit by putting that tag on there.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that's interesting, your point about how you can go, one is much harder than the other. That's the kind of ironic thing about work in general. I just read a book. I don't know if you've ever read Bullshit Jobs.
No.
But it's like, honestly, I actually think selling software in many ways, it's easier. It's easier when you've got, especially if you've got a good process, good tech stack, good marketing, good, all these things that you get when you're part of a good organization. It's a grind.
Yeah.
Selling some of this stuff out there. And it's just like being able to do that without wanting to die and like actually getting up every day and doing it.
But there's beauty in it as well. Like, one of the things I love about transactional sales is you get feedback real quick. What's working or not working? Did I close deals today or not? Right. Another thing is, as a competitor, I want to win or lose. Like, I crave that sensation every single day. I literally want to feel like $1 million or feel like shit every single day. The worst thing in the world to me would be coming to you, Chris, and being like, wow, I had a great sales day. I moved this deal from stage 6 to 7 and 18 months from now, it's going to close. For me, I'm like, that sounds like fucking hell. That is like my nightmare right there. There you go. Right.
That's the quote that jumped out at me.
Yeah. So you get to experience that. You get to go home every day being like, man, I closed deals today. Like, I feel good. Right. And if you're an enterprise seller and you close, I don't know, 1 or 2 deals a quarter, you're talking about like 8 days a year that you get to come home and tell your loved ones, like, I closed a deal today. I mean, that sounds fucking miserable to me. Right. So it's different strokes, different folks. There's good and bad. It's not that one is easier or harder than the other. It's not that one is better than the other. And, again, that's part of why I decided at the time to write the book in that way, was to put some respect on these transactional kind of selling environments.
Oh man, we're going to go to our next segment in a minute, but you just kind of touched on one of my pet peeves on LinkedIn that I never complain about, but I'll complain about it here, and you can yell at me in the comments if you think I'm wrong. But if all you knew was the big enterprise sales, you'd be one of those people who just brags about creating pipeline. For some reason, that bugs me when someone's like, I just added $1 million worth of pipeline. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, that's $1 million worth of money that is not yours yet.
Yeah, cool. Put it on the verbal board, which is that white wall behind Chris with nothing on it. Put it on there.
I'm just like, when someone just like, I just made $17 million worth of pipeline. I'm like, none of that counts until it closes.
It's no different than the person who is bragging all over the place. Like, I set 10 appointments this week. So what?
Did they show up?
How many of those appointments actually showed up? How many of those appointments actually showed up and asked for another appointment and are proceeding towards closing? So people just get it all, people get it twisted.
That's actually a great transition to Gimme Gimme. Scott, you want to do Gimme Gimme?
Yeah, give it to me.
All right, here we go. All right, so everybody, there is a pernicious myth that has been going around LinkedIn for a long time. So some people think that LinkedIn is designed for entertainment. Some think it's designed to just selflessly give away knowledge and ask for nothing in return. But on this show, we know what the real point of LinkedIn is, right? The real point of LinkedIn is to make money. It was designed so you could post your resume and get better paying jobs, find better employees, and get new economic opportunities. So every episode, I like to pop into character, and my guest and I like to ask my audience for exactly what we want from them. Scott, ready to do this?
I'm ready, man. You're looking very presidential. Let's do it.
Hello! Welcome to another episode of Gimme Gimme, the part of the show where I ask you for money. Scott, you're here today. My audience is here. They're watching you on LinkedIn. They have money. They might be running a giant company. What are you going to ask them for?
I want them to come to Costa Rica. I want them to go to Surf and Sales. Check out surfandsales.com. Come to a new type of sales conference.
That's it? That's all you got?
You want me to keep asking for more money?
No. Okay, well, I'm going to jump in here and say that if you're not going to go to Costa Rica with Scott, you are a moron, okay? You need to go out there and actually do something that's exciting, right? Even if you spend your entire life sitting there on LinkedIn, not doing anything, the stories that you can share from Surf and Sales are going to last a lifetime, all right? You can actually go there. If you've never been to Costa Rica before, it's amazing. Scott is amazing. What's wrong with you, all right? Go ahead, scan the QR code, go check out Scott's website, and go visit him at Surf and Sales. Also, while you're thinking about it, maybe you should check out some of the wonderful sponsors that sponsor this show. Okay, for instance, we can start with Flying Cat Marketing. Now, Scott is not going to go around there talking about all the founders he's met that have no idea what they're doing with marketing SEO, but there's a lot of them. All right, there's a lot of you out there. And instead of trying to do it yourself, instead of trying to figure out what words you want to go focus on, instead of making organic content yourself, why don't you just pay somebody who knows what they're doing for the love of God? This is where Flying Cat comes in, right? Flying Cat Marketing has everything you need. They will take your organic content creation campaigns from start to finish, and they operate in over 15 different countries. All right. Not only that, they are run by women. It is a primarily women-run company, and we all know women make up about 80% of all financial decisions, right? So if you're out there trying to do it yourself, give up. Just pay somebody else to do it. It'll work so much better, and that's what Flying Cat is for. Speaking of which, today's show is also brought to you by Apollo.io. Now, if you are a person who does a lot of sales, I don't even need to explain to you what Apollo is, right? In fact, I'm going to go one further on that. I'm going to tell you, just go ahead and scan the QR code for Apollo.io right now, and don't even research it, okay? I order you, if you are watching this show right now, do not even look up what Apollo does on Google. Just take out your credit card and buy it. Okay, if you are running a sales operation, they have everything you need. They have accurate data. They have automation software. They have sequencing software. They have everything you need. So go ahead, scan that QR code to check out Apollo.io. Don't even Google it. Scott, do you have anything else you want to add today?
I just love that you told people to give up. I agree. Give up. You're trying to do this yourself. Give up. Ask for help.
Just pay for it.
Put your stress. That's how I feel about yard work. I thought about doing it myself, and I just gave up. Fuck it. I'll just pay somebody who's an expert to do it.
It's going to look so much better if somebody who knows what they're doing is going to put the time and care into it. So this has been Gimme Gimme. Thank you very much. And Iggy, roll the tape before we get to our next segment.
Hello? Is this Mr. Sherber? It sure is. What can I help you with, brother?
Hello. You were not expecting this call. Do you have 17 seconds to
Hang
learn
on a
about
second.
mercifully short?
Is this a cold call?
I don't know.
You. Never call this number again.
Oh no! Another unsuccessful cold call. You probably don't have time to fuck off.
I got a quota to hit.
Are you spending hours every week cold calling and cold emailing but not seeing results?
There's gotta be a better way.
Introducing the complete guide to selling on video. Whether you're new to sales or a President's Club member, this fast and fun course will teach you to efficiently create short, customized videos that get results. The complete guide to selling on video is not sold in stores. Visit chrisbogue.io and use promo code GIMMEGIMME to take $50 off while supplies last. Don't delay. Get noticed today.
And we're back. If you are just joining me, I am here live with Scott Leese. We've been talking a lot about failure and sales, and now we're going to talk a little bit about surf and sales. So surf and sales, I'm going to let Scott get into this in a minute, but I'm going to point out one thing that may or may not piss you off. So just like people say about like corporate bro and different people out there, you are a sales guy, but I actually think your secret is good marketing. And I think surf and sales is just fantastic marketing. I am like, it's one of those ideas where it's like, I'm just like angry I didn't come up with it because it's so brilliant. And I really think that the surfing ethos has been a really helpful part of your brand. Like, I know that really helps me kind of understand who you are. But even before I knew you, thinking about you and sales and the things that you say about sales, I don't know. It's not something I ever hear salespeople talk about. So tell the audience, what is surf and sales? Why did you start doing it? What is it? The floor is yours.
Well, I appreciate the kind words on the marketing aspect of things. I wish I could say I was smart enough that I strategically did all of that, but I didn't. I've been surfing for over half of my life. I grew up in Northern California and lived in the San Francisco Bay Area up until 2011. Been on surf trips all over the place. And I was in Costa Rica on a surf trip over Thanksgiving in 2017. And I was talking with my buddy, Richard Harris, about sales conferences. And basically I was like, they're so boring. They're always in the same city that we've all been to a million times. It's always at like the Marriott with this stale, dull kind of energy. It's like, I hate all that. That's not my scene at all. And I was kind of giving Richard shit because that is his scene. He loves that kind of stuff. And I'm like, this is my worst nightmare, trying to network and socialize at these kinds of things. Why does nobody have a conference in a cool place like here in Costa Rica, like on the beach? And why does it have to be 10,000, 50,000 people? Why can't it just be like, 20 people hanging out for a week, teaching each other stuff, spending half the day talking about business, about sales, about leadership, about brand building, entrepreneurship, whatever. And we could spend the other half of the day surfing or giving surf lessons to people who've never been and always wanted to try it. We can do fun stuff like go into the jungle and do zip lining. We can go get good food and walk around town and, have drinks and just kind of hang out and chat. And he was like, well, I don't know, Scott, why don't you build it? And I said, well, why don't you build it with me? And that was late November of 2017. And the first event we ever held was February of 2018. So in a span of like 4 months, basically, this thing was an idea to an actual sold out event. And it goes back to what we were talking about before, which is like fail fast. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? The worst thing that could happen is I plunk some money down for this thing. Nobody comes and it bombs. And a couple people make fun of me who told me it was a dumb idea. And, I have to say, well, you're right. Guess it was a dumb idea. Oh, well, I'd move on. I'd live my life. It'd be fine. But we tried it and it turned out to be, a hit. And we've been selling out 2 to 3 sessions every single year since then. And it's become a big part of, as you were talking about, like my brand. People, I think, associate surfing with me. I put the little emoji in my name on LinkedIn, even of the surfer. And we've had, I don't know, I'd have to look at the actual number of people. It's got to be like 100 something people, if I'm doing any math right at this point in time. Almost 200 people who've come, and everybody stays engaged and communicates with each other and helps each other. And, You learn a lot, and you go home with 19 buddies, 19 business buddies that you now are able to help, or they might be able to help you. And the connection is just so much deeper in an intimate kind of environment where we're outside of our sort of daily routines on the beach, in the jungle in Costa Rica. And so that's what the Surf and Sales Summit is. And we've got 2 events coming up this November if you want to check them out.
Yeah. I am like a huge believer that, and I always go back to like improv language, because again, all my stuff is improv based. I used to coach and direct a lot of improv shows, and the phrase we used all the time was group mind. When you're on stage with a group of other people, you have to be able to rely on each other. The show is more important than any individual's performance. You are all in service of the show. You are all a part of this thing that is larger than yourself. And even like, so you were a jock growing up, right?
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
So one thing that stuck with me, I was not a jock. I enjoy, like, there's sports and fitness things I like doing, but I was not like a team sports kid growing up. I was a theater kid, and I remember assistant directing a production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, where a bunch of the football team came and auditioned because they thought it would be funny. And have you ever done a school play, or have you ever been involved in a play, Scott?
No, I never did.
I've been a part of numerous plays where a bunch of jocks come in and get cast, and the same thing always happens. They sign up as a joke, and then a couple weeks before showtime, they have this oh shit moment where they break down and realize the show's going up in a couple weeks and we're not ready. We don't know our lines. We're stiff and awkward. We look stupid. And they end up becoming more of a part of it than even the theater nerds. They end up, by the time you get to opening night, they work so hard on it. Because it's like anything. You got to go out there and try to do a good job. And athletes know what it's like to work for something and reach a certain level. Yeah. And I try to recreate that in anything I do. I feel like when you get a bunch of people to go through something together, where you're all really trying and you're all really trying to make everybody else look good, and it's a group effort, like, it transforms you, it changes you, and it changes the way you think about other people. So you could talk more about Surf and Sales if you want, or we can just talk in general. I know you've done a lot of coaching, you've built a lot of sales teams, but how do you create experiences where everyone feels connected? Like, what are the general rules you go by when you have to build a team together?
Wow, that's a good question, and my answer would probably change depending on the environment that we're talking about. When I was building companies and building sales teams, what I tried to optimize for was not somebody's background or their resume or accolades or any of that. I really cared about, who is this person sitting across the desk from me in the interview? Who are they? Where are they trying to go? What have they been through that's prevented them from getting there? How bad do they want to get there? And why are they willing to do something now that they've previously been unwilling or unable to do to get to this place? And I felt like if I optimized for as many of those type of people as possible, we were going to win. I did not care about some lone wolf superstar person who wasn't going to be a good teammate or follow our process. I didn't want that person on my team. I wanted somebody who was like, I've been through hell. I know exactly where I want to go. I just need help getting there. And I'm like, Chris is my guy. I can work with that. So I don't know what you want to call that, but it's soft skills. I think it's intangibles, it's life experience, it's personality, it's desire, humility. And I cared about those things a lot more than, like I said, resume, accolades, braggadocio, bravado, whatever you want to call it. Like, I didn't care about all that stuff. And that worked really well for me. So we had like team unity or this, I think you called it a group mind type of a thing, where it's like we're all trying to better ourselves here, and better people sell better, and that's where we're headed. In community type environment, like surf and sales, or Thursday night sales, which I ran for 3 years. I think it's about creating a safe space for people to be themselves. I think you have to allow people to speak the truth without fear of repercussions. I think you have to accept different opinions. I think you have to partner with people who come from different kind of backgrounds to show that you're also doing the work. Then you have to amplify other people's voices and care about their success more than your own. I think you have to get people out of their normal routine. I'm a big believer in this. Taking people to a relatively remote place in Costa Rica. And if you've been to Surf and Sales before, this hour and a half drive from the airport that I'm talking about, sort of through the jungle to get where we're going. Any Thursday night sales, it's like 7, 8 p.m. at night on the East Coast, or even later than that if you're in other parts of the world. It's like, this is not your normal routine. And you have to drop the front that you know everything and that you know what you're doing and you're so polished and you're so perfect and you're so professional, right? It's like, no, I'm not. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing either, right? And I talk about things that we all think, I'm privileged in the sense that I'm at a place where I can say the quiet part out loud and not suffer the same repercussions as other people. And so I wanted to stick up sometimes for the little guy, because I still feel like the little guy, considering all the places that I've come from. And so that's kind of the ethos of it all. And then you let the community itself drive things. I don't need to be the one in charge the whole time and telling people what to do and driving things. If you look at Thursday night sales, that community had micro meetups on its own. It spawned a brand new community out of Thursday night sales called Rev Genius that everybody's heard of. Most people don't know that Rev Genius was born inside of Thursday night sales.
I didn't know that. I had no idea.
That's where it came from, right? And Surf and Sales has these different WhatsApp groups and people messaging each other on their own, and people were promoting these things on behalf of the community. That's how you know you've built something special, when other people are talking about things without you asking them to. And so I just tried to facilitate all of that stuff, as best I could.
I want to dig into a couple things there. So one, I do. It's this tricky thing where, no offense to RevOps, if we got any RevOps people in the audience tonight, but like when you're in RevOps, you think about every single activity every single person does every day, and whether or not it's checking a certain box or accomplishing a certain thing. You're measuring every single call, whether it succeeded or failed. And I've found that, like, in order to get the best performance out of people, you need to bring them somewhere that's safe, where they can be vulnerable, where they can screw up and it's not going to be used against them. It's not going to be rubbed in their face. It's funny, I haven't talked about this on the show in a while, but like, growing up, I was a part of a midnight theater group started by Brendan Hunt, one of the co-creators of Ted Lasso, the guy who played, I don't know if you've ever watched Ted Lasso, the guy who plays Coach Beard. Yeah. He had a theater called Theater of Ted, and it met Saturday nights at midnight. So it was like, who shows up to a theater at midnight, right? So it's self-selecting already.
There you go. That's part of what I was talking about, right? Yeah. Yeah,
and it had no end time. It started at midnight. Anyone could compete, and if you if it went till 6 a.m, it went till 6 a.m. And the only rules were like, don't hurt yourself or anybody else, and clean up after your piece. Other than that, everything was fair game. So it was like real super crazy. It taught me to go out there and do things that might suck. My stuff on LinkedIn looks weird. I do a lot of like weird comedy and stuff. And it was because I kind of cut my teeth in this scenario where it was this midnight theater group. We were just trying to do the craziest thing we could. And then sometimes we'd be like, oh shit, that worked. The thing that wasn't supposed to work does sometimes, but so few people get a chance to do that. So few people get to go be a part of something where they can make mistakes without judgment. Like you said yourself, surf and sales is a very, it's a small thing, and I guess we can go here a little bit more. I guess this kind of dovetails a little bit into the state of B2B SaaS today. I see a lot of your commentary about AI and, you've said that your own job might be irrelevant.
Yeah.
In a couple years. What do you mean by that?
Well, this is the part that I think is funny, because the backlash, and there's plenty of it, that I get is like, oh, you must be, hawking your own wares and you got an agenda or whatever. It's like, no, actually, everything I'm saying completely fucks me in my business. All of it. It doesn't mean that it's not true, though. Right? I don't have an agenda. The best thing in the world for me would be for nothing to evolve and nothing to change, because I've been doing great. So I've tried to develop over the years the ability to see beyond what's right in front of me. And if you look at a racetrack, for example, there's turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, right? And most people are only looking at turn 1. Either, unfortunately, they're in a position where that's all they can handle right now for a variety of reasons, or they just myopically are only focused on that and don't want to think about anything else because it's too scary. But I've been trying to look ahead at like turn 2, turn 3, and even turn 4 for a while now. I want to know what's coming. And for me, talking about the monster under the bed makes it less scary. And that's my own defense mechanism. And I don't want to bury my head in the sand. I don't want to cover my eyes and pretend something's not happening. So what I've been talking about for a couple of years now is that I actually think all of our jobs are completely at risk, right? And it starts with low level kind of tasks and admin kind of roles and stuff like that. They're all going to be automated away. All of them. I don't know in what time frame, but that's the direction that you're headed. And I'm in rooms and have conversations with people who fund all of these startups and all these businesses that some people don't have the privilege and to have access to. And I hear what they say. Everything is about how do we build billion-dollar unicorns with 2 or 3 people. That's the conversation. It's not about building a company. It's not about creating jobs. It's not about helping the community or any of this kind of stuff. It's literally about how do we have chrisandscott.com be a $1 billion unicorn? So that's their goal. And the tools are being built to make that possible. Then you have to consider the fact that our behavior as humans has completely changed. When we were growing up, if the phone rang in your house, you ran towards it because you're like, is that my girlfriend or what? And you didn't want your sibling to like embarrass you or your mom to answer the phone and be like, who's this calling for Scott, right? It was an event. Now it's a distraction. I bet you and I both have our phone on silent right now, ringer off. Mine's on airplane mode most of the day, because I have come to be trained to think that the phone ringing is a distraction, taking me away from what I'm supposed to be doing. Somebody's trying to sell me some bullshit I don't need. Somebody's trying to scam me, right? The same thing happened with email. We used email appropriately at first, and then some genius decided we should send 1,000 emails out per second, and we spam the hell out of everything. So now people have tens of thousands of unread emails in their inbox. Some people don't even check their email inbox, don't even use it. So we don't reply or open emails at the same rate we used to. We don't pick up cold calls at the same rate we used to. So how am I supposed to imagine a world where 5-10 years from now, what we're doing right now is equally or more effective? I don't see it happening. And I have 2 teenagers who I get to see as potentially this future generation of business owners that I'm thinking about. They don't talk on the phone ever for any reason. They don't really text people. They Snapchat people. They don't text people. They don't use email. Email is an annoyance and what old people do. They're going to enter the workforce not having grown up with the same communication styles that we did. They don't think it's a problem to buy something without talking to a human being. They think it's a problem to have to talk to a human being. And this is very different. So I think that is the direction that we're headed. The way things are being done right now is not going to be able to work at some point in the not so distant future. And everybody who's a salesperson, their job is in trouble. Everybody who's a sales leader, their job is in trouble. Everybody who's a consultant teaching people how to do all this kind of stuff, their job is in trouble. Everybody who runs an outsourced SDR agency, their jobs are in trouble. And that is very, very scary for people to hear, because you're threatening their livelihood. You're threatening their ability to protect and take care of their family, right? You're threatening their ego. And so I understand why people get so pissed off and they, tell me I'm an idiot and all this kind of stuff. But I don't hear any good arguments against the things that I'm talking about. And so until I hear better arguments or see something different, this is what I believe.
I will say this. Still got a little while to go before AI gets really good at video.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with AI not being good enough to write copy right now. I don't disagree with AI not being good enough to sell stuff yet. But think about, you have to understand that the capabilities of AI right now are doubling every 6 months. So what that means is 7 years from now, what we consider to be ChatGPT, AI, or whatever, 7 years from now, it'll be 256 times more powerful than it is right now. You mean to tell me AI video at 256x the capability of today won't be good enough? I have a difficult time believing that.
So I put up here this thing about breaking the rules. I think this is probably a good place to end here, because I could talk to you all day, but unfortunately we're almost out of time. But when I was in Surf and Sales, we talked about this, and you talked about this a bit in your book too. And I think this is the advantage that humans still have over the machines, is that there is some element of sales that always involves breaking the rules. And you have to be, and you just like, people who haven't read Scott's book, he has this part where he talks about how he walks through the priority line at airports to make sure that you are putting on a test. Can I look like a guy who's supposed to be here? So Scott walks through the priority line, and they never catch you, do they, Scott?
Well, nowadays they do, but they didn't used to.
They did. Okay,
this was like, the rules have gotten much stricter in the last few years.
He wrote the book in 1997. So no, but even the fact, I know like non-sales people are like, well, you should never call somebody's personal cell phone for sales. I'm like, that's the number they pick up. So that's the number I'm calling. If they get angry, I'm good at talking myself out of trouble. Right. I'm the guy in the movie where there's 3 guns pointed at me, and I'm like, let's just talk about this for a second, guys. Like, that's what I do, when the AI is working, the thing I say about AI, and I know amazing things are happening. I know I use ChatGPT in a million ways, written and images and stuff like that. There's a lot of uses for it. The thing I will say about sales, the reason why I'm still bullish on sales in many different forms, is in sales, you have to be able to surprise people still. And AI is not supposed to surprise us. AI is supposed to give you exactly what you ask for. And when AI does start surprising us, that's Skynet. That's oh shit, better suit up and do war against the machines because they're about to exterminate us all. So I'm like, no matter how perfect the AI can get, sales is messy and it's uncomfortable, and all the reasons why people still avoid it to this day, even though there's so much potential money to the small amount of people who do it the best. There's got to be some part of you that's willing to step outside a little bit of polite society. Like cold calling is rude. It's rude.
The perfect example of that is where sales is going to start circling back around to. It's going to return to very intimate human experiences. It's literally going to return to face-to-face. Because that's the only way I can tell if I'm dealing with a person who's authentic, if your messaging is real, if I can look you in the eye, because I can't trust a call, I can't trust an email, I can't even trust a video sometime in the near future, but I can trust if I'm looking at you face to face. It will return to breaking the rules of like non-solicitation, meaning door knocking, going into an office. It breaks the rules in terms of super ultra creative techniques to do prospecting, like Chris performing a one-act play, sending it over to a prospect, have it be relevant to them. All of this kind of stuff is the only way forward, coupled with the relationships and the network that we have built. It's getting access and entry into accounts and with context that we're trying to reach through people that we already know. It's trusted. Chris knows so-and-so. I'm trying to get a hold of so-and-so. Chris makes an introduction, That's trusted, right?
Yeah.
So it's those things that we've gotten away from because everybody said that won't scale, right? We now have to break that won't scale rule and do all sorts of things that don't scale in order to succeed again.
Yeah. And I don't even think that just applies to sales. I tell people like,
Probably
hey,
not. Yeah.
Everybody is selling something. I don't care what you do. I don't care if you work for a nonprofit. I don't care if you don't believe in capitalism or whatever. Either you go ask for the money or somebody else asks on your behalf. You know, if you don't like the deal you're getting, you got to go ask for more. And that's any type of change. If you want political change, left or right, does not matter what you believe in. You're going to actually have to go convince people, change hearts and minds, like build bridges with people. And for that reason, I think sales is always going to exist in some form. But just like it always has been, nobody's ever really going to like it. And that's fine. People like me and Scott will keep doing it anyway because we've been through some shit and we've seen the upside. So what are you going to do about it? Scott, I love having you on the show. Unfortunately, we are all out of time for today. So if anybody joined us late, why don't we give them one more chance to find you online? Where should they go to find you?
You can learn about how I help companies build go-to-market strategy, sales playbooks, help with recruiting, training, coaching, RevOps process, all this stuff at scottleese.com. You want to come to Surf and Sales, check it out at surfandsales.com. Just want to say hi, drop me a note on LinkedIn, and I'll be sure to respond to you.
Yeah, genuinely one of the nicest guys on LinkedIn. You've been so generous with your time and your advice. And thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. A lot of fun.
Yeah, everybody, I am Chris Bogue. You can scan that barcode if you want to talk to me about video coaching and shoot me a connection request. I go live every week. We'll be back with another episode of Death by PowerPoint next week. So it's my improv show that runs every other week. Got some great guests coming up in June. And once again, thank you to Apollo.io and Flying Cat for making this all happening. Say bye, everybody.